kind of in this interesting time where like that which is old is new again. I think we're seeing this in different places. Like PR is getting bigger because it turns out like if you have this ubiquitous AI that needs the right signals, it's actually looking at kind of these older, Lindy kind of timeless signals. And I think that's all over the place. But to bring this to the agency world, like in order to compete, most of our clients have had to get more specialized in order to build trust, right? And by fact, if you're getting more specialized, your market's getting smaller. And if your market's getting smaller, then a lot of the times the mass cold outreach and all these other things are less effective, and they're less effective anyway because there's just more competition and noise and all that stuff. So it kind of brings us back to this place where like getting a referral has you know even more weight than it used to, and I think that's one thing we're kind of channeling.
They said getting started was the hardest part, but no one told you how hard it is to scale a custom service business. It's time for your team to step up, but your clients want you. Discover how to scale to 7 figures and beyond by freeing up time and getting your team to run whole parts of the company so you can focus on scaling profits. This is the Hands Off CEO with Mandi Ellefson.
This is Mandi Ellefson from Hands Off CEO. Today on the show, I have Dan Englander. And Dan is going to be sharing with us about his approach to referrals. And he's the founder of Sales Schema. Am I saying that right? Sales Schema?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's funny that I had to ask you how to actually say the word schema, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, maybe you had a weird way of pronouncing it. Um, and what they do is Dan helps agencies and B2B services to be able to set up reliable business development systems that are based upon targeted referrals, strategic partnerships, and trust-based outbound. Since 2014, Sales Schema has supported more than 200 firms to drive thousands of opportunities and millions in lifetime revenue. He also hosts the Digital Agency Growth Podcast and author of Relationship Sales at Scale. Welcome to the show, Dan. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Mandy. Appreciate it. Excited to have you on the show in a few weeks or so.
Yeah, you know what? I'm excited about this because here's the thing: is referrals is what we have seen inside and outside has worked consistently best for all of our clients. And I know that you have like figured out the secret sauce for how to be able to do that more at scale. So I'd love to hear, what are you finding working?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll kind of like give a little more context. I think for a lot of years we helped agencies with outbound. I come from the agency space, worked on the biz dev side, led accounts for a while for a creative house, and then started a lead gen company. And for like years we did outreach because frankly it used to work, and we would get meetings every week for clients. And then it kind of started declining. I think because of stuff we can get into, but a lot more skepticism, a lot more competition. And referrals are always this thing that we would say, like, oh, referrals aren't enough. You need to do something that scales, hashtag scale. I have a book called Relationship Sales at Scale, mostly because sales rhymes with scale. And I like the alliteration. But the reality is, like, referrals, it's not that referrals don't work, it's that reactive referrals work, right? So if you can apply the same sort of tasteful prospecting, proactive approach to referrals, it's really something that can be leveraged, can be a much more chill, frankly, prospecting process than having to go chase down a CMO and put together some magical combination of words that breaks through the noise of that person's inbox. So to answer your question, I think the secret sauce is probably a few things. I think part of it is solving the who problem first, like who's doing this, who has the energy and time, who's going to be the one leading it. And then from there, really thinking about like where we start with our clients is a lot of it's not a 180. A lot of it's looking at where the relationships already exist with this vast array of people that the agency knows and has forgotten about. The client that is used to work with that's now gone on to a different account. The prospect that you had a really great exchange with, but the timing wasn't right. The accounts person that has relationships that you don't really have anymore. And partners, of course, like non-competing agencies, software companies, et cetera. So it's starting with that. Then a lot of it is honestly reducing the friction and making it easy for people to help us, right? So if the biggest example I have of that is if I say, hey, Mandy, can you help me meet these people that fit this criteria? And you say, yeah, of course, ear to the ground, happy to help. And then we just go our separate ways, nothing happens, and you could tell that story over and over again. Versus if I come to you and say, "Hey, Mandy, here's 20 people you might know. You don't have to make intros to all of them, but are there like a couple that jump out to you as people that might be a good fit?" Yes, great. Here's a template you can use to make the introduction. So just like reducing the friction as much as possible for the other person. So I
Mm.
can get more into that, but I'll leave it at that for now.
No, I love that. And I love that you have an outbound background and that you've also just realized that this is the most effective thing. Like this is how to combine the the two modalities so that you can have something that actually is replicatable and scalable.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't like, I just came up with it overnight. And obviously I didn't invent referrals or partnerships. I think we had to get there in a really roundabout way. And there were a lot of macro changes that had to happen. And I think that we're kind of in this interesting time where like that which is old is new again. I think we're seeing this in different places, like PR is getting bigger because it turns out like if you have this ubiquitous AI that needs the right signals, it's actually looking at kind of these older Lindy kind of timeless signals. And I think that's all over the place. But to bring this to the agency world, like in order to compete, most of our clients have had to get more specialized in order to build trust, right? And by fact, if you're getting more specialized, your market's getting smaller. And if your market's getting smaller, then a lot of the times the mass cold outreach and all these other things are less effective, and they're less effective anyway because there's just more competition and noise and all that stuff. So it kind of brings us back to this place where like getting a referral has, you know, even more weight than it used to. And I think that's one thing we're kind of channeling.
Mm, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So then you mentioned, people that I don't know if this is exactly what you meant by this, but what I heard is that you have um, people that you might work with as a client and someone who was on the account and they left and went to another company.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've heard a lot of times for our clients where they get a lot of their business is just from movement from people to different companies that they take them with them. So are you seeing that too?
Yeah, that's probably one of the bigger drivers. And I think a lot of it is getting all of that information that exists in the brains of either the owners or the biz dev people and the accounts people into like one place. And this is one thing that there's a lot of tools out there, a lot of software tools, sales enablement, engagement tools, but there aren't a lot of them that can kind of acknowledge that like relationships are complicated and the data for like the nature of your relationship with a former client or a prospect or a partner, whatever it is, exists in one place, and that's your own brain. So instead of trying to automate everything, what we're helping clients with is kind of like really go down the line and look at who they've forgotten about and get it into one place. But back to the clients moving around thing, yeah, that can be a huge driver, and like a lot of it is focusing more on those contacts and less on all the other shiny objects that put you into the same busy nightclub as like every other person that's pitching the busy marketing leader, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. So then um, you mentioned that you're going and you're putting together a process to remove the friction, right? You're putting together a list of the different people like that they could price. So what are you seeing? What else is part of the process that makes what you're doing different?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is assessing like would you actually ask this person for a referral before you even begin? Like is this like really a lot of our process is about continuously picking low-hanging fruit. So like get as much low-hanging fruit as possible and keep getting it over and over again. So like a lot of it, in terms of the process and what makes it different, a lot of it's like looking at who you already know and then assigning what your comfort level would be with asking this person. And starting there as a starting point before you spin your wheels wasting time on a bunch of research about their access and about who they already know. So like step 1 is identify, right? Figure that out. The next thing is basically then from there really quickly estimating their level of access. So you have your most comfortable people out of that group, who are the ones that are most likely to know prospects? And you can do this very easily. Like our system takes like 1 minute per person to go estimate their level of access to the people you want to meet using just a basic LinkedIn search process. So
Mm.
that's very quick. And then from there, you have basically your contact list. You have your warm list, and what we're working through with clients from there. And we have, we're about to release a software platform to do this in concert with the work. Is the a method for engaging those people tastefully. So this is where relationships are complicated, and it's not like there's a one size fits all for everybody, but at the same time, it's not like there's infinite options. It's more like there's three or four different situations. So like the situation we like the most is one where there no buy-in is needed. Like they've already passed referrals and you just forgot they exist, or they're very happy, and you can kind of just reach out to them and say, "Hey, are you open to this? Here's a list," and then they're like, "Great, here's some intros." That's group A. I think group B is somebody that you need to be upfront with about what you're looking for so that there's not this bait and switch dynamic, but you also might need to talk to them again and figure out how you can help them and so on.
Yeah.
And so on. And then you have other groups that are kind of in between, like happy clients. Like I was on a call with a client a client the other day, and they're like, there's this moment about 30 days into an engagement where the client is as happy as they'll ever be. And it's like this kind of like like golden moment. And I think a lot of agencies at that time will be like, hey, like by the way, we get our best clients from referrals. If you know anybody, send them our way. And then client says yes, and then nothing happens. If
Right.
you can go from that to, hey, on our next call, I was hoping to run some intro ideas by you for people that we can help. By the way, on those calls, I'm not hard selling anyone. I'm doing an intro on what we do, and so I can be a resource for the future. That really de-risks it for the other person, and then you reduce the friction by saying, "Hey, client, here's a bunch of ideas. Let me know if there's a few that jump out to you, and I'll make it as easy as possible." And that if you can bake that into your recurring process with an accounts team, it's a complete game changer for getting referrals.
Mm.
So
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. One of the things that we've done to help de-risk it is just by coming in as a resource. Like, hey, there's a resource. Mandi has this great resource. She put together a book. She'd love to send you a free copy. And
yeah,
and that's because of your relationship where, maybe there's even a link there that you can go and buy it here, but she'd like to send you a free copy. And then it's like, I don't even like to go and have like a conversation with someone. I'd rather them to
yeah,
go through my content first. I'd rather and the other thing too is that it's also not scalable if you have like 20 introductions and now like 20 people want to have a conversation with you. Um, that's one of the things that I've run into, right? So that's one of the things that we've put into place is putting together a resource. Have you found that as useful too?
absolutely. And I think that there's different agencies at different levels, and I think that the level you've gotten with your great stuff and with your book, which I have right here, and I'll just like definitely plug it, um, is probably a higher level problem than a lot of our clients face. I think that a lot of our clients, they might be going after larger companies. They're going up market. Just breaking through that initial meeting is harder than other things. And they may not have the book, they may not have the content yet.
Right.
So I think that a lot of times in those situations too, a dynamic I sometimes see is like once you've de-risked the call, those people would prefer to talk to somebody that has this, specialization sometimes than going through content. It kind of varies.
Mhm.
So I think it's both, honestly. I think you can kind of lead with one versus the other. But yes, once they've gotten to the point of having more calls than they have time for, that might mean a few things. It might mean leading with content. It might also mean hiring the salesperson to do those calls instead. But I don't disagree by any means.
Yeah, yeah, got it. Yeah, then that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, so then you're building these lists, you're reaching out, and you're saying, hey, next call, I have some introduction ideas. So I'm curious, with your approach, I mean, these are all seem like pretty simple concepts and simple things to do. So why does somebody really benefit from working with like from the work that you guys do with your clients in the coaching space? How does that help them over just running it on their own?
Yeah, I think the short answer is like we've had situations where we do an initial diagnostic and give people the system more than I've talked about now, but not that much further than what I've described. And
Mhm.
we check back 90 days later. I'm like, hey, how's it going with the referrals? Oh, we've got busy with a big proposal. We got
Yeah.
busy with client work. We're in the trenches. Nothing got done. Oh, and the pipeline's empty, and I'm freaking out. Great. Well, so like It's one of those, there's that Derek Sivers line, like if information was the answer, we'd all be millionaires with great abs. So
Yeah.
it's one of those where like when we work with clients, training, accountability, getting it done, like a lot of what we're doing is like literally like working in build out sessions where on the call, like I'm like, all right, you're gonna draft the messages, I'm gonna look at them and give feedback, and then you're gonna press send on five of them at the end of this call, right? And
Yeah.
that way the
It's
certainty
done.
is there, it gets done. So that's the short answer. As an aside, I think as AI becomes more ubiquitous, that's going to be one of the few defensible places for, I think, for my business, but really for any business, is like the certainty of it getting done, because the IP element is getting squeezed. We've got to kind of adapt to that. At least that's my feeling on it, for better
Yeah.
or worse. Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing is that you have, at least a decade of experience knowing what works and under what conditions. And sure, you can have an AI spit out that, but you don't know if that's going to work. And do you want to go and blow through 20 of your contacts testing
Sure. That's also true.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's the certainty of results, right?
Yeah, what I also worry about those, like that is all true, but at what point, like I've been in a coaching program where I'm like, at this point, I'm like, can you just give me the transcripts to the videos and I'll run them into Claude and make this just part of my thing, and I'll pay you, some fee for that or something. And I don't think that I'm alone. I think more and more people are going to have that impulse as time goes on. So I don't
Well,
have a great answer so far. My bet is on more training and accountability, like a personal trainer,
right.
but we'll see how it goes.
Well, and the way that I would see this, and the way I see that the industry is going, is it's going to what it's always wanted. People have always wanted results. So it's looking at like what are the conditions that we need to have in place to be able to get the results? What are the actions that we need to take? And that gives people certainty so they can actually invest their time and energy in a certain direction. And that's missing from a lot of coaching and training and consulting engagements actually.
That's true as well. And I think that like, more than ever, we're kind of entering this this period where like the 80/20 is more important because there's just so much you can do that's become easier than ever with AI and with a jungle of software tools and everything. So like figuring out what not to do is a big thing. And like I don't. I think there's multiple ways to keep the pipeline full or whatever. And what I'm trying to do is like focus on the agencies where if they meet this certain criteria, like they're going up market, complex service, limited time and bandwidth, owner doing multiple things, limited market size. If you fit all that criteria, chances are referrals, partnerships, people you already know, especially if you've been at it for like 5, 10 years or more, is probably in the 80/20 compared to like many other things. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm seeing anyway. Yeah.
So you mentioned moving up market. So then how do you use this strategy to move up market when maybe you don't your network isn't is at a lower market that you want to work at?
Yeah, it's a great question. And an up market is relative. And when I said that, I mean like not SMBs or some mass market approach, like one where there's, a consultative sales process, let's say. So I use that kind of broadly. But to answer your question, I think the first thing is really challenging that assumption that your network is limited and really double checking, because most of the time what we see is it's not. And like once you go out past a partner or two, or just even with just a couple partners rather, there's a lot of contacts and a lot of people that the agency can work with that they've probably forgotten about. But let's say that's not true, and maybe you've hired a new salesperson, or you've pivoted completely and like you don't have those relationships. Then obviously, it's not me making this up. You got to go out and build those relationships. There's no way around it. So tactically, I think there's a lot of ways to do that. I want to just say like do cold email or do LinkedIn campaigns or do this. Like there's a lot of ways, but most likely like it's going to involve a softer way in. Like if that's meeting people at a trade show or inviting them to participate in the creation of content like what we're doing right now on a podcast or something to that effect. That's going to be an easier way to build that relationship and build trust than just, hey, I'm an agency, can I sell you this thing? And if the timing's off, you'll tell me to go away. So that's kind of what we see. And then, that's going to have different colors depending on whether it's like you building a relationship with a non-competing agency or a prospect or whatever it is.
Hmm. Okay, got it. That makes sense. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I've seen too, like you said, that, co-creating content together. It's a really fantastic way of meeting new partnerships. And having individual referrals from clients is awesome, right? But I will say that some of our clients don't have the network to be able to make referrals to us. So our best leads actually come from partner referrals. Like
Yeah.
like a very big portion of our business comes through that. And and it could be a pretty slow burn too. I mean, like I think that people will look at this and say it doesn't work, like referrals don't work or partnerships don't work. She's like, you just haven't given it enough time. You have to really look at this as a whole sales pipeline. And instead of looking at, like, on a sales funnel, a lot of times people look at it as like referrals. They make me a referral, I go and make a new sale next week or next month, right? It's like that's not how it goes. They're entering the top of the funnel here where you're building a relationship. And it's really about how do you be able to find ways to build these relationships at scale, to be able to add value without it taking your one-on-one time, which there's nothing wrong with doing a one-on-one time to start if you have a hotter prospect, or but
Right.
those are the things that I am seeing as far as mindsets that makes people get a lot better results, me included.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I really think that like any channel that's going to make a meaningful change, obviously it will take time and energy. Like everybody nods their head at that. But then when it comes to doing it, we all like are hoping to shortcut things and get silver bullets. And again, like I don't think the referral and partnership approach is the only way. I just think it's a really good way for certain businesses that are in these kind of like high trust, B2B verticals and that kind of thing.
Right.
And it's the way that I almost sort of slot it in is like I used to do one-to-one cold outreach pretty often, and it used to
Mhm.
work. Like, hey, I don't mean the mass light up a bunch of domains kind of thing, but like there's this decision maker, there's this agency owner for our clients, there's this CMO at this company, and I'm going to go do a bunch of research and say, hey, look at all the great stuff you're doing, big fan, here, we should really talk. And sometimes there's a time and a place, but I think it's gotten a lot harder to make that work because the amount of skepticism is way higher, and people assume that that's an AI message now, right? So
Yeah.
if you can take whatever time you might have spent on that sporadic effort and put it to a higher leverage partnership, like maybe you're talking to that non-competing agency and nurturing this relationship with them and trading intros and like doing what we're doing now, getting on each other's networks, that is a much better use of time in my experience than running up the tree of a skeptical busy marketing leader, let's say.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And one of the things that I've noticed too is that I think that a lot of business owners are just tired, and they're just tired of trying things that don't really work. And some of them are just that they're just kind of waiting for referrals to come in. And but I've seen that more when the market's a little bit moves a little bit more. But I've also seen in this market where people are feeling like they're kind of frantically trying to try different things. I hire a salesperson, which like rarely works. It's like building, what I say is like they're like, okay, well, we want this beautiful master suite. So they go and they hire someone to do framing and drywall to build this master suite, but there's no foundation for the house.
Right.
And and then they're wondering why the walls are like turning over and it eventually just falls apart. And that's what
Yeah.
it is when you hire a salesperson before you put these foundations in place.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like we've likened it to like, hiring a driver before you have a car kind of thing. I've made that mistake. I've
Yeah.
gotten it right too. I think that it's funny because like you look at some sales hire and then it doesn't work 6 months later, and you work with an agency owner, you piece apart like what were they actually supposed to do, and they're like, well, they're supposed to go out, get leads, close leads, do this, segue this person into a project, and then the list goes on, and it's kind of like this is essentially like a founder of a company. You've described these are like highly entrepreneurial activities, and like maybe like you get really lucky and get somebody and like you actually afford them and it'll work until they find a greener pasture for 6 months or something, but like it's very unlikely to work. And the problem is you interview salespeople and you interview good ones, and they're typically successful within this existing system.
Yeah.
And most agencies don't have that system. So what's the answer? Well, I mean, it's an owner building it, constructing it, perhaps with help from people like me and you, and
Yeah.
so on.
And that's exactly it, is that there's oftentimes what I'm seeing is like, yes, the system needs to be built at like they're from these like big agencies that will hire and train salespeople for you. And it just sounds like and their pitches are so good. They're so
Yeah.
compelling. Some of those same companies have really like they like peaked and then dropped because everybody realized that they were selling what they said. They had a terrible reputation for delivering bad results.
Yeah.
And that's an example of maybe some of the bigger ones that are a little more well known, which I won't mention any names, but
Yeah.
people listening probably have been screwed by them. I just know because I've heard a lot of people telling me this. But instead, like it's the simple, boring stuff like we're talking about here. Like this is not flashy. This is not exciting. It's the work that we already know that works. It's just doing it in a slightly elevated way. Like, I mean, I hadn't thought about that, going through and building this list, then bringing it to a next client call and asking who can we send this, like what, who could we make an introduction to? Is that how you said it?
Pretty much. I mean, that's a lot of it. I mean, like really like what I'll say to people when I talk on an initial call with them is like, this is not a 180. This is like a 30 to 60-degree improvement in putting like a lot of consistency behind what already works. It's almost like, brick to forehead, alien comes down and is like, it's kind of starting from scratch. Like it sort of makes sense. Like what's already working. Referrals, how can you optimize them and get them better as opposed to doing a new thing? I mean, that's kind of the way that we're thinking about it. And it's one of those things that like works a lot better because you're coming in with so much trust. And I think that once you get into the rhythm of it, it does take time and it does take effort, but it's a lot more pleasant, just frankly, like to get referred and to work with partners and say, hey, can you help me reach these people, than it is to do the other alternatives to prospecting, which are like firing up email domains or chasing around a CMO or something to that effect.
Mhm.
So for that reason, we
Yeah,
like it a lot. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Well, Dan, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have?
I think the only thing that I can think of is just like starting with starting with who's doing this and making kind of an emotional commitment to running it is probably the most important starting place versus like anything tactical. So, for most of our clients, that is the owner and involves them getting stuff off their plate with your help, Mandy, and getting like 10 to 20 hours back is really big. To make space for this kind of thing, and then eventually a hire to do this. So I think that's the most important, biggest question before going off in any direction. So I would just mention that.
Got it. Yeah, and one of the things that I would look at this too is just like there's a lot of administrative work that has to be done with this. So why not just have your EA sitting there doing all that for you, and then your job is just simply to just help tweak some of the emails. I mean, you already have some of those scripts there, but
Yeah.
like to help tweak some of those messages to help like come up with the initial list. But I mean, even your assistant can go through and make the list. They can make a list of your clients. They can make a list of all the people that you might have a list of partners already. I mean, you should.
Yeah.
But they can go through it. Even as we're talking, I had some great ideas. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to totally have Andres go and put together some of these lists in this way, because I hadn't thought about doing it from that direction before. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it could take a lot of the legwork off of you.
Yeah, and we have clients that work in that way. I still think it's collaborative because, like,
Yeah.
again, owners have to own the relationships they have. It's hard to like kind of do this like segue or bait and switch between different people that own different relationships. But yes, we've definitely seen EAs and similar, help with organizing it and making sure it gets shipped on and all that sort of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, great. All right, well, Dan, it was so nice to have you. Thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your exceptional um, expertise around referrals and partnerships. And I know that people really will value this episode.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mandy. And if anybody wants to check out what we're up to, we kind of give away the whole process for free, and we'll make a custom page, basically like salesschema.com/hands-off, one word.
All right, so go to salesschema.com/hands off.
Yes.
Okay, and one word. All right, well then we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And it sounds like a fantastic resource, and I can't wait to read it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mandy. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hands Off CEO with Mandi Ellefson. If you want to work less and make more, make sure you subscribe and get a new episode every week, and help spread the word by leaving a review.